On today's episode, people complain all the time that there's nothing on TV to watch. Well, we're going to change that. What's up, nerds? My apologies to longtime viewers of the channel, all year and a half, 2 years of it. This isn't a repeat from the first couple of episodes I had where I showed you how to kind of build your own TV station. Check out the links. In that video, it's a little misleading. I mean, you're not actually building a broadcast TV station. You're just running a Raspberry Pi with VLC, just cycling through a bunch of pre-programmed playlists. It's really cool if you have like a little monitor to keep going and stuff like that. But you're restricted to that one little monitor. But what if you could expand your horizon a little bit? We're going to be doing that in a little bit, and I'll show you how. I was doing some research, and by research, I mean just watching a whole bunch of YouTube videos. A lot of them led me to this, the Blonder Tongue Agile Modulator. Basically, these were used in hotels and things like that. And what you would do is feed it an audio and a video signal, a composite audio and composite video signal, and it would output an RF signal that was set to a specific channel. And this one lets you select that. It gave you a whole range of them. These are on eBay going for about, between 50 and 75 bucks now. I mean, they're not breaking the bank, but they're kind of big for what I wanted to use it for. They make smaller ones, like little rack mount unit ones, but you either have to buy the rack or you have to kind of fabricate your own power connectors and things. Either way, this is kind of a little overkill for me. But I also found this. On AliExpress, it's just TV FM transmitter. No brand name because why would they be? And it has everything I think I need. I mean, you can input an HDMI or composite and it'll generate an RF signal and broadcast it. This is the only kind of documentation or specifications I could find, and it was on the product page of the AliExpress website. That's it. You press and hold the menu button for 3 seconds to enter settings and short press shift, which I don't know what that will do. We'll find out. Adjustment parameters, I guess add and cut are maybe plus and minus. Who knows? It's English. The frequencies that it transmits on, VHF, you got 85.25 to 216.25 megahertz. UHF, you go from 471.25 to 839.25 megahertz. And in audio frequencies, you've got 4.5 megahertz, 5.5 megahertz, 6 megahertz, and 6.5 megahertz. You can put 1080p, convert signal output. There's a lot of stuff, but most importantly, it's young, real, and full. Future Billy here. I ended up buying this from Amazon. It was a little bit more expensive, but it got here a little quicker. And as kind of a foreshadowing, because I had a feeling, their return policy is much better. Now back to the video. Got it in. Little dent, no big deal. Let's see what we got in here. And this is, I think, the first unboxing on this channel. So, wow. Okay. We've got a foam wrapper, probably not anti-static. Bubble wrap, probably not anti-static. Yeah, I mean, focus it in. And it looks like it. I mean, it's kind of, I don't know. It's like something that you would buy. Like, well, actually, you would get the files off of like a GitHub page and send off to PCBWay or something, and they send you this back. Nothing that you would like a commercially available product, but whatever, get what you pay for. All the documentation is handily printed on here. I mean, for what it's worth. Anyway, HDMI, composite, Get your little power antenna. Hang on, let's see. All right, hang tight. A USB cable, USB-C for power, USB-C for power, and your little antenna. It's a telescoping, like it's an SMA, I think, connector. Yeah, I mean this may work. It just kind of screws in here. With you really need to have it tuned, for optimal transmission. Have it tuned to the frequency. They recommend using a little dipole antenna, and you have to cut the lengths of the dipole, each side of the little antenna, to certain lengths to match the frequency of the broadcast. I mean, there's calculators and everything like that online to figure that out. We're going to do that a little bit later. But anyway, I just want to kind of see if this guy works or not. Fingers crossed. It looks pretty. Looks like the picture. It came in. Well, at least we got something. Let's hook some things into it and see if it works.
A little longer than a few minutes later.
Well, it powers up, so I guess it's a step in the right direction. It took a while to figure out, fine tune this whole thing here. But anyway, let's get back to this menu here. Hold it down for a few seconds to get into it. First off the bat, you can select VHF or UHF by hitting the add or cut button, which is up and down. We want UHF. PN, took a little while to figure that one out, but that stands for PAL or NTSC. We're in North America, so we use NTSC. The frequency here, this is where I ran into issues because, let me just cut to a chart real quick. Hang on, take a look at this. Now, as you saw on the website description, it was pretty vague about, pretty much everything. Aside from the available frequencies, you didn't get a channel list or anything like that. So I went through and did the calculations, and here's what you get. On VHF, you get channel 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, and 7. And then you get one of the frequencies, 85.25 megahertz. Well, that falls just above the broadcast standard of 83.25. On the UHF, it's even crazier. Now, despite advertising, it goes well into the 800 megahertz spectrum. It only gets to 647.25 megahertz. And that falls just above channel 43, which is 645.25 megahertz. And then you get 30, 27, channel 23, 22. And then the last two frequencies fall somewhere in between channel 17 and 16, and then channel 16 and 15. Now, unless your TV set or whatever you're using to tune these in, you have the ability to fine tune them. Well, this is useless. A lot of TVs they scan fixed frequencies. I'm going to try and test it out on this Toshiba I've got, but something tells me 4 of these frequencies are going to be useless. So right there, you only really have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, maybe 11 channels that you can use. So, okay, let's see what we can do. I'm going to pause the video just to explain why it took so long for this video to get out. It's because of this piece of shit. I mean, who'd have thought something that looks like it was made out of Maker's Faire would be any, reliable and quality controlled. But Amazon sells a lot of stuff third party, so quality control is out the window. They don't care. But thankfully, they have a good return policy, so that came in handy. Anyway, the first sign was that all the documentation was pretty much just printed on a PCB, and it gave a range of frequencies instead of actual channels. And I was under the impression that you would just fine tune the frequencies and find which one you would like and just lock it in and broadcast from there. But there's actually only 15 available channels. I have a chart right here, and doing some research, that's where I really noticed it was all going wrong. You see the different channels and their corresponding frequencies, they're spaced 8 megahertz apart. Well, that's PAL in a lot of parts of Asia. NTSC is 6 megahertz. Now, even though the little menu setting said PAL or NTSC and we chose NTSC, we're still getting the kind of 8 megahertz spacing, and none of these really are centered in on the NTSC broadcast standard. In fact, the only two that I could get with any kind of decent picture and sound were channel 30 and channel 6. And even then, randomly, it would kind of drift out of tune. Now, I just wanted to make sure it wasn't my TV set. I have another little television set that has, the over-the-air tuning, and it was the same thing. Tune into channel 6, the picture would look like scrambled cable. And guys of a certain age know that picture, right? All right. So I was trying to figure out, why and if it was the transmitter drifting. So I hooked up my little RTL SDR. It's a little USB dongle, software-defined radio, and I use it really as a cheap spectrum analyzer, and it worked perfectly because it did tell me, yes, this is not broadcasting at what it's saying it's broadcasting at. It was like maybe 2 or so megahertz off, either up or down the spectrum. So yeah, that was a problem. Now, I was doing some more research, and on some forums, people were like, well, yeah, it does that, but if you're using a cell phone charger or something like that to power this, it will fluctuate like that. But, since they didn't give you anything like a dedicated power supply or anything like that, and I don't have a dedicated like Raspberry Pi power supply, which would be ideal, I guess, for this, or hack into ATX power supply or something, that's going to be extra hassle you got to go through. But, on top of that, that's just a minor setback compared to the whole channel listing not being truly compatible with NTSC. So back to Amazon it went. And now I'm going to try and use the original route that this was going to take, and that's a blonder tongue. It's tried and true. So I have one ordered. Let's see if it comes in, if that'll work any better. I mean, it's got to, right? Right? Got this from an eBay seller for under $20. I wanted a blonder tongue MICM, but I got a Drake VMM 600 because I couldn't find a blonder tongue with the channel that I wanted. Drake is owned by Blonder Tongue, so it's essentially the same thing. A lot of the eBay sellers who are getting rid of these they'll list what channels they have available. And if you're doing something over the air, you kind of want to stay in the VHF spectrum because these are designed to broadcast over the cable channel frequencies, which vary from the over-the-air broadcast channels. The VHF spectrum from channel 2 to about 13 or so, or 14 maybe, I forget whichever, they're the same as the cable channels. So channel 7 here, it's going to be the same frequency over the air analog as it is for cable. So if you wanted to run a cable straight into this TV and tune in as a cable channel, you'll get it as well. Now, when you get into the the UHF spectrum of channels, anything from like 14 and above, it varies from, like 50 to 100 megahertz off, or a few hundred actually. So if you wanted to get, say, channel 58, a random channel, you couldn't just plug it in and tune in your TV set to channel 58 because it's broadcasting a cable channel 58, which is about 100 or 200 megahertz lower. It wouldn't line up. And in some cases, some of the channels you want, normal NTSC tuners aren't able to pick it up. So you want to stay in a VHF spectrum here. Channel 7's a little bit on the high end. I was reading where, the preferred channels, if you are going to go this route, you want to stay from channel 3 to about 5 or so because they're a little bit more powerful, or it's a little bit better signal. But they're hard to get. I mean, I didn't find any. 7's the lowest one I could find. So that's why we went with the Drake instead of the Blonder Tongue. Anyway, this is meant to slide into a rack unit. So we don't have the rack unit. I'm going to have to get a power supply and kind of find something for these pins. As you can see, if I can focus on it, we need a 5-volt positive, 12-volt positive, and a ground. We're doing a composite video. I'm just going to have to get an adapter to go from an F connector to an RCA and an audio input, and then an F connector for RF out. So what I'm going to have to do is, despite what I said earlier on, I am going to have to hack into an ATX power supply or something like that, because that'll give me 12 and 5-volt and a ground. And let me get that and be right back. Hang tight. I had a nice little ATX power supply in my box of spare parts. It's cool, Max. Whatever. I like this because there's a dedicated on-off switch. Most ATX power supplies, you have to hack that little green signal cable to a ground and put an external switch to get it to go. Uh, this makes it a lot easier. You got the transmitter unit here. I had some of those little breadboard jumpers. You can see up there. Zoom in, get it lined up, and I just kind of soldered it in the cables, ground, 5-volt, 12-volt, and it's upside down, but power it up. Hopefully, let's see. Yay, we get power. Let's see if this is actually broadcasting at the right frequency for channel 7. Those of you wondering about the ATX power supply I'm using, what I did was just cut the little white connector off, the ATX plug that goes in the motherboard, and I grouped all the like cables together, and I, tipped each one so they don't short each other out or anything like that. And if I need another 5-volt or 12-volt, which I probably will for the amplifier and the Raspberry Pi that's doing all the heavy lifting in my little TV station, I'll just pull off what I need, run it through this wire loom, and it'll be good to go. So that's it. No big secret. And that's how I roll. I've got my little RTL SDR hooked up. I'm running SDR++. I have the frequency set to 175.25, which is the broadcast frequency for channel 7. Power it on, and we should see a little spike right at that frequency. Okay, let me move the indicator over so you can see that. And there it is. Right there. 175.2 megahertz. And turn it off, you can see it go down. A lot of little interference right there, but 175.25 comes up. Now it is kind of weak. I don't have any antenna hooked into it. Let's change that. Here is the dipole antenna I made for broadcast channel 7. You can go online and find a whole bunch of calculators to determine how long each, element or length of each side of the dipole need to be. So for broadcast channel 7, which I forget offhand the exact frequency, I'll pop it down here somewhere, but it's roughly 16 inches each side. So I have a length of just coax RG6 going around, and it's advised to make a little choke coil up top, about 6 turns of about 4-inch diameter radius. What that does, that's kind of balances your signal because coax cable isn't balanced, and you'll get all kinds of interference. That little choke coil up there will kind of lessen the interference, I guess. Anyway, that's what I did. And I just use a bamboo planting stake. You can get a whole bunch of these at Home Depot, like a pack of 5 for like, I don't know, $6-7. You just want something straight and non-conductive. Boom, does the job. And zip ties. Those are always great to have. So all I did was just take the coax cable, strip back the shielding. The center conductor goes to one side, the shielding goes to the other. This is going to go up in my attic, away from any electrical lines or anything like that. I do have a cable access, we'll just call it a hole in my wall in my main computer room, or the spare bedroom where I do all my video production and literally everything else. And we'll just run that into the back of the blonder tongue. So up in the attic I go. Got my antenna hooked up. Let's fire this guy up and see, hopefully, if the signal has increased. Oh yeah, that's a big increase, all right. Okay, next step, let's hook in an audio and video input to this, the video source, and see if we can tune it in with one of my old television sets. Hang tight. I've got one of these little jacks, arcade, all-in-one things. Picked it up at a thrift store for like $5. These are great for testing, audio and video sources, because you just need to pop in a few batteries It has a composite out and an audio. We just have it wired into the back there. Let's turn it on. Turn on my little Toshiba set right now. See what happens. We have it on channel 3. Let's go to channel 7. Oh, there it is. There is some interference there. I don't know if that's the antenna or just the signal is a little weak. But I don't know if we get sound or not. Yeah, we have sound. I don't know if you can hear it. So, yeah, it's got sound and it's got, kind of a distorted image. And I know it looks angled. There's something, I have to do a neck adjustment on this television because I was testing it out earlier just to make sure it worked with a known video source, i.e. this, going directly into it, and it gave me the same thing. So I took my Blu-ray player and I connected it to another input back there, and same thing, it's rotated. So it's in a neck adjustment. You just kind of knock it back a little bit, get it straight. It should be all good. But for testing purposes, this is fine. What I may do now is see about getting a little antenna amplifier. You put them in line with your antennas, and it's supposed to boost the signal. We're just going to do it reverse. Just as a reference, we got to get a little baseline signal here using SDR++. At 0 decibel gain, we're at, it looks like about -55 or so. I found this in my big old box of junk. It's a Mini Circuits ZRL 1200 RF amplifier. I do not have any idea where I got this or what I got this for. Maybe I found it at an estate sale, thrift store, something, just, or a box of random junk. I don't know. Who knows? But I've got it. I've got the Mini Circuits amplifier hooked up. And even though you can see it's rated from 650 to 1200 megahertz, and channel 7 is broadcasting at 175.25, the picture is absolutely gorgeous. You get it focused a little bit. It's very, very good. And right here you can see on the spectrum analyzer, it's clocking in just above between -40 and -45. So it gained about 10, almost 15 dB of gain. So that's a plus. So even though it's a mismatch on the megahertz, it does the job. And because it was, well, I already had it, so technically free. I don't remember where I got it. I'll just take that as a win. I'm about 75 feet or so away from the antenna. I'm outside on the other side of my workshop on a deck that I use for home brewing and things like that. And this little portable TV is picking it up just fine, even with my little ghetto rabbit ears right there. It's looking really, really good. There's no distortion or anything. I mean, kind of makes me want to bring this into my little truck and fire up my little 120 inverter and kind of do a little drive test and see how far I get before the signal breaks up. So yeah, it looks good. So the next step now is let's try and get an HDMI signal in there. I'll probably hook up like a Blu-ray player into a converter and see what kind of picture we get with that. I'm using this to convert the HDMI to the composite audio and video out. It was pretty much the cheapest one on Amazon, and you can tell it's quality because you don't even want to pronounce the name of this company, but it works. Let me show you the setup. Well, I've got a Blu-ray going in here, or actually a DVD that I burned. Comes out via HDMI into the little unpronounceable piece of hardware there. Goes into the Drake, into the amplifier, and then out to the TV. Now this video here, this is a masterpiece. I found this actually aired on local cable access back in the late 80s, early 90s, almost nonstop. It was produced by the local school system here. around 1984, if I had to guess. And it was about not dropping out of school, and it featured a local band. And from what I can see on the multitude of bandanas, they were called Gypsy Savage. Never heard of them, and I played in a lot of local bands, back in the day. So who knows what they ever did? This video is just cheese overload, and I'll put a link to the video in the description because you guys just need to experience this. Once again, this refresh rate is not, it's just kind of crazy how that happens. But what I did was I found the video on, I think it's hosted on Vimeo of all places, not YouTube. Ripped it and burned it to a DVD, and my little Sony Blu-ray player plays it with no issues. So the picture quality is actually really good considering it's going from a 40-year-old video now on a burned DVD in the Blu-ray player, coming out, being converted to composite into the Drake transmitter through an amplifier that's not rated for the right megahertz. And we get this. Yes, this is awesome. God, so many bandanas. Here's my little retro TV set that I made. I did a video on it. Go ahead and check that out. This, I'm going to try and repurpose this. There should be enough room. It's pretty wide in the back here, so I may have enough room to put that transmitter in there. I'm worried about airflow because that amplifier gets a little hot, and I think the back on this is solid. It never did generate a lot of heat. It's just a Raspberry Pi and an old, what is that? Maybe a 15-inch, 17-inch, little flat panel HD TV, like the Michael Scott special there.
Finally broke down and bought myself a plasma TV. Check it out.
We might try and rebuild this, repurpose it. But now that we know that everything works, we can start taking it apart and splicing into well, not splicing, we're just going to split the signal coming out of the Raspberry Pi. One's going to go to the monitor for constant monitoring, and the other one is going to go out for transmitting. So let's get this guy apart and see what we got to work with. Here's the back of the little retro TV I made. I kind of forgot I had all this stuff going on. Speakers. I guess this is an on-off switch for the Raspberry Pi. Rabbit ears going in here. This is the HDMI. Actually, it's USB going to a hub so I can use my mouse and keyboards and things like that. I guess all these inputs are wired in. I don't really remember. Let's get this thing off and see what's going on. All right. Yeah, it looks like the only thing happening here, these are not populated. Just the coax going in for the tuner back there. Yeah, this is a Raspberry Pi. This is the whole guts of the station right here. And that doesn't take up any room at all. It looks like I have the 120 coming in. I also have a power adapter to probably run the TV. And at some point, it looks like I should have, I'm looking for a transformer to take me down. Well, actually, this is for the Raspberry Pi. All right, so the television is still running off of 120. That's what splits off here, goes to the television. This is to power the Raspberry Pi. It's got its own dedicated power. Not a lot of room. Very little airflow except this little pegboard that I repurposed for this. So I don't think this is a viable option because I just want, good airflow for the amplifier down there so it doesn't overheat and ruin it. Let's explore some other options, and let me go back and dig around my workshop. I have tons of project boxes and other electronic equipment, like old stuff that I've accumulated. And let's see if we can find something else to put at least the guts, the Raspberry Pi, and the transmitter in. They'll be a little bit more, I guess, breathable. You get some good airflow in there. I've got a, I must have something that will work a little bit better than this. I'd love to have it all self-contained, but I don't think that's an option right now, just for the heat dissipation of it. So anyway, this will go back displaying the programs, and we'll have another dedicated little box for the transmitter side of things. It's been a few weeks because work has been absolutely insane. But in that time, the junk gods have smiled upon me. There was a prop house that was selling off their inventory. It was for the TV show Leverage Redemption. I've never really heard of it either. I don't have cable, so maybe that's why. But apparently, according to the IMDb screen, it went on for a couple of seasons. And they just recently wrapped up on it because I guess it was canceled or whatever. Anyway, this was in their section of set dressing, electronic stuff. Got it for $5. And this checks off way more than I ever could have imagined. You have antenna outputs, which we can hardwire. I can't speak this morning. I still need to have some coffee. But we can, kind of tap into these for the outputs of the antenna. And the best part is that it's got a lot of airflow. I have my little hard drive magnet on here. So when I take off the screws, I can just put them on there and not lose anything. This was, let me see if I can spin this around, a lab volt RF noise generator. And I say was because this is absolutely gutted out. You can probably see straight through there. There's nothing in there. Prop houses usually buy their bulk of their stuff, like, estate sales, just going around, there's a company clearing out old businesses and warehouse, and they buy the stuff by the pound, no matter if they're working or not. You just need something in the background that looks kind of high-tech-ish. So all these, I was looking online. There's not a lot of information on this, but these were actually push buttons. They're gone. The whole circuit board that was in here is gone. It's a completely empty case, which works out fine for me. You still have a little LED indicator there. Some potentiometers are still in there. This looks perfect. I mean, this will work out like a champ. It is dirty, scratched up, some rust spots on it, and that can clean easily, kind of repaint and touch up what we need to do. Kind of maybe come up with an idea. Maybe put some an EL panel back here, an electroluminescent panel, just to get this glowing, or maybe just one big bright LED behind each one just to have lights on it. I don't think any buttons would do any good right there. But yeah, having the antenna, the BNC outputs here, we can definitely use those to go into or out to the my main end, the broadcast antenna. And it's gonna be generating noise, all right. Metaphorical noise, I guess. Who knows? Anyway, we're gonna get this apart, get it cleaned out, and then start kind of getting all of this together. These are all the innards. They've just been sitting there in a pile. Here's the Raspberry Pi that we removed from I'm speaking like we're having high tea with the Queen, that I took out of the little retro TV set here. I'm going to use the same power supply. Might have to cut out a template in the back of this so we can get the fan, shooting out, and be easy to plug in the 120 plug in the back there. We're going to see what happens with that. But $5, it is everything I could have hoped for a little rack enclosure unit. I'm going to call this a win. So I'm going to get on this, clean it up, and we're going to open up and see where we can mount some of the equipment in here. Who would have ever thought that the cheapest lapel mics that I could have bought from Amazon would randomly just lose connection? But whatever. Anyway, here are the insides of that little unit. Got a lot of room to work with. There's some little rack rails going in there that housed the circuit board. And yeah, it just a lot of potential real estate here. Now the only problem is, not the only problem, but the next hurdle, I guess, is to play component Tetris with this thing to try and get everything to fit nice, symmetrically, and also allow for decent airflow. And I also have to put some cables in here, so we're gonna play around with this thing. Hopefully the next clip has audio. Now that all the sides are off and I have a better look at everything, made a few design changes. See these little brackets that go across? Well, I can unbolt them and flip them around, and that way the bracket that the Raspberry Pi is mounted to can just sit down in there. Of course, I could probably just do away with the bracket, put this somewhere, I don't know, but this seems like a better choice. Just let it sit on there, maybe drill some holes in there and secure it and see what happens. Also, I've decided to decase the ATX power supply. That way I can kind of mount this anywhere, any way I want to mount it in there, probably along one of the sides or so. Just, it'll give me a lot more room to work with. Also, I can relocate the fan, put it on the side here, maybe get another one and have a push-pull situation, double the airflow. Also, I could probably trim this out here, keep, focus in, come on hand, get out the way. Just keep this like a plate right here. That way I can just kind of cut a hole in the back of it, of the old RF noise generator unit. I forgot the name of it exactly, but I think that's it. I don't think it has a model name. Oops, didn't mean for that to happen. Just kind of cut out an approximate hole, and that way I don't have to worry about precision cutting around, this IEC connector and all these guys. Just one big hole and cover it up. Nobody will know the difference except you guys watching the video. Oops. Anyway, the top, bottom, and the back are all outside getting a fresh coat of paint. They're looking adequate, a lot better than they were before. So let me get back on that and I'll update you when I can. I forgot to add, this guy is going to go on the very back side, that back panel, being all metal. I drilled out 4 holes in it. We're going to bolt it directly there, put a big old bead of thermal paste on the back, and it'll act as a heat sink because this does get warm. And also, that's how I roll. Before I went any further, I thought I'd do the right thing and test out, the whole shebang to make sure it, works. So here's what we've got so far. This is the ATX decased power supply. I have a whole bunch of 5-volt lines and ground lines run, and they're hacked into USB-C cables here. That's powering the Raspberry Pi right now. That's been running the show this whole time. Got the cooling fan that's being powered by a little plug in there, a little 12-volt. So it's doing its job. The signal is coming out of here, this little, I think it's a micro HDMI on these Raspberry Pi 4s, and it's going into the splitter right here. And then from the splitter, it goes into one line that takes you to this little 5-inch LCD monitor, which I'm thinking about mounting on one of the front panels maybe, but there it goes, so I can see what's happening live. And then the other half goes, this is the HDMI to composite converter, and these are all powered by USB-Cs, by the way. So I mean, it's nice that they all have the same voltage requirement. This goes into the Drake unit right there. From there, it goes into the amplifier back here, which is sitting on this nice piece of big metal, and it's staying cool. So this heatsink is actually doing its job. Then I have the lines going out to my antenna right there, and it just runs down across the floor, into the wall, up into the attic. So I can tune it in on this TV set. I didn't know this. My main monitor, it's I think a Vizio, probably from around 2011, 2012, 2013, right up when they were still using analog stations, I guess. I have to check an exact date on this. I really don't know when it's from. I found this on the side of the road. Big shock. Got it running. Just needed 2 diodes. But you can actually still tune analog stations in. So fortunately for me, I can, turn on a monitor, turn this on and monitor whatever's going on. Now the picture is very grainy. And when I had my little Samsung little 14-inch CRT, it was perfect. And this was still grainy. So I don't know if just the tuner is a little wonky or maybe the fact that I don't have an antenna hooked up to this. Um, I'll put a set of little cheapo rabbit ears on it and we should be good to go. But anyway, that was a nice surprise to find out this model had it. And a nice surprise to find out that this all works. It didn't shock me to death. It's messy, but it can be contained. It'll all kind of go in there. We'll put the lid on it and just kind of, don't tell anybody about it. It's, our little secret. But it works. Huzzah. So let's get this mess cleaned up, organized. I may see about putting that on a front panel, like cut out a section of it where some of those old push buttons were. I don't have like a laser cutter or anything. It's going to be all the Dremel cutoff wheel, maybe a jigsaw, but the Dremel cutoff wheel has been a little bit better. The jigsaw, when I use that, it has a tendency to drift. So we're going to see, but that might be an option for that. And then if that's the case, I've got to find a place to put speakers. We'll probably get some small little ones just on each side here to go with the fans, because I'm going to find another 12-volt case fan, tap it into this power supply so we have a push-pull, keep it really nice and cool. And I'll raid my collection of harvested speakers from the flat panel TVs that I've pulled off the side of the road over the years. If I get one that's non-repairable, I always save the speakers and any kind of like the IEC jacks like this. They're always really good to have spare parts wise. They got a lot of good stuff in them. So anyway, I will see you in a bit when I have this thing a little bit more organized. Probably not more organized, but a better idea of what we're gonna get to. Well, that didn't last very long. This power supply decided it no longer wanted to be part of this earth, and it's not powering on or anything. Don't know what happened. There was no magic smoke, no capacitor, blowing up or something that I could see. So instead of spending a lot of time trying to troubleshoot this, I've got literally a dozen different ATX power supplies in my workshop. So I found a slightly, well, let me decase it afterwards, or maybe I can keep this one in the case. It sits a little bit lower. The dimensions are definitely different, but the cabling's still the same. And this is an 80-watt light-on power supply. It'll be plenty enough to power whatever we need. So we're going to swap this out, see if we can make everything fit. Also, I'm going to forego the LCD display right here. Just tried test fitting it, and it's going to be way too complicated. Besides, if I had that in there, it would be redundant to have my little retro TV set, and I really like having that thing going. So what I'm going to do is just have a HDMI feed through out the back, or maybe, whoops, aha, 1 in a million shot, caught that one, folks. Have a HDMI feed through probably on a front panel somewhere. We're trying to figure out something. So where I can just plug it in, and that way I can plug it into any TV and just watch it, with a HDMI input, that is. So, that's the way these projects go sometimes. Just you got to roll with the punches, especially when you're using, 20-something-year-old components and all in there. It's just par for the course. That's why it's always good to continually test and, try and let stuff burn in while you can, and have a mountain of spare parts. It's always a good rule to follow. I decased the power supply, and unlike the other ATX where you had a lot of room up top that you could eliminate, this is very compact. You're not really doing any better or worse by decasing it. So I may just leave it in the case. That way, you have the fan in there. It's got a good airflow and it's shielded. There's no exposed high voltage, parts like the other one. And yeah, it'll just be a little bit better and safer. What I will do though is desolder these, I guess, all the wires, because they all really go to a few points. Like these are all your 5 volt, cables going into this one solder point here, and there's some other 5 volts going to this little one here. I really only need the 5, 12, and the ground. All the other little voltages and things I can lose. It's not going to affect it. The only ones I want to keep are this green and this ground. This green is that's how you make your little power switch, a little low voltage power switch from this. You just take your green cable right there and you ground it, and that turns it on. You turn it off, it shuts it down. It's like a low voltage power switch. With the old one, I was switching directly the 120 off and on, and that wasn't really optimum. Especially, you run the risk of grounding out to the case or something like that. It could have been an issue down the line, so we're going to eliminate that as well. Yeah, that's about it. Let me get the soldering iron out. Got my old trusty Weller station here. I'm going to start desoldering some things, and basically we'll just have one thicker gauge cable coming out of the 5 volt, 12 volt ground, and then we can split it off from there instead of having all of this bundled mess. Keeping it neat. Here is the finished product. Able to whittle all of that wiring harness down to these 3. Had some 16 gauge or 14 gauge wire lying around, or maybe 18. One of those teens. Definitely thicker than the normal harness that it was. So I've got my ground, 5, and I didn't have yellow for 12 volt, but white will do. And if your eyesight is off like mine is, you won't notice the difference. Also have that little power on cable. Just need to wire switch to it. Here's all this garbage I removed off of the other one. Not garbage, but the connectors and wires. A lot of solder on those boards. Let's focus in. Maybe not. Anyway, in the trash it goes. So there is that. Also, for the front of the panel, where I was going to put the LCD monitor, little tiny 5-inch thing, I found this. It's just a wall plate, but I had a whole bunch of these HDMI inserts, and I think I can find a USB insert. So what I'll do is just kind of cut it to size, fit over all those exposed little holes in the front. I'm going to have to kind of cut away at it to make it fit, and just paint this black, and it'll, like it was meant to be there. I don't think I'm going to put the whole outlet plate on top of it. Maybe just, this one section here. But, I'm going to take the cheap way out, using mostly stuff that I already had. So that'll work, right? Anyway, let me get back to putting all the USB-C connectors onto these leads, and finish wiring up the old existing harnesses I had for the Drake, and a switch and a ground for the power switch. Hang tight. Well, it's about 99% complete. I mean, realistically, the only thing I have left to do, if I even do it, is find something to do about this. I may just leave it exposed just for extra ventilation. I couldn't find anything to really cover this. I tried putting like a little backlight behind it, and that didn't really go as planned, so it'll be fine for right now. I wired up the power switch, and I have the little feed-throughs here for USB 3 and HDMI. It's one of those just outlet cover plates. They have the squares cut out that you could plug, RJ45, coax. In this case, we have USB 3, HDMI. That feeds through to these little angle adapters. I had to do that to make everything fit. This thing's not going to stay in focus. But here's the inside here. And here's the lid. This is the Drake transmitter. Power supply. This is the lead for the power switch right here. And it's in the off position because I don't know why they put the power off up top here. I guess maybe if it was push button, who knows, but kind of walled out the little hole there to make it fit. LED comes on, and that activates the Pi. I have all the 5 volt leads back here coming. Well, yeah, it's coming off of here. I have it kind of tucked away back there. That activates the Pi, the HDMI to composite converter. I have the HDMI splitter under there. So one lead comes out to here so I can feed it to my little retro TV, so I can watch that all the time. The other half goes into the converter here, which then goes into the top of this, which is where the Drake is mounted. Oop, can't really talk. I hope that didn't screw up everything, but we'll find out in a couple of seconds, huh, won't we? And there's the little amplifier right there. Comes out of there into the amplifier and back out to the antenna here, which is up in the attic transmitting. So when I close it, it's supposed to fit nice and neat. Nothing sticks out, nothing shorts. And if I look at the big TV here, we saw before, it's grainy, but it's working. I got to change the channel. It's no longer 62. It's 7. I have to change the graphic on that. And I think, what time is it? Oh, it's right on the hour. So it's looking for probably Speed Racer. Now, when I was testing it, it wasn't connecting to my Wi-Fi, or I was having trouble. Maybe I need to redo the playlist and things like that in VLC. Sometimes when you lose power or anything like that too many times, you have to redo your playlists in VLC. You have to physically, you have to repopulate the playlists. I don't know why. It's just a quirk they have. Let's see. Will it? Oh, yeah, there it is. Never mind. I found it. So it's Speed Racer right there. My dumb reflection in the background. I had to wear a high contrast shirt. So, there we go. Let's see what it looks like on a regular TV. Or when I say regular, I mean the CRT. That's a little bit better. I mean, you'll see some of the interference because of the, I guess, refresh rates mismatch between the camera and the tube there, but it's a lot better than, the graininess of this one here. It's still a little bit grainy, but I can tweak that a little bit. I have my rabbit ears going, so it's all good. Oh, there it is. It's got to lock in. But, so it's broadcasting. It's not the clearest, picture like you get a direct feed in on it, but it's great for what I wanted it to do. Now the real test is to get my little portable one and just see how far out we're actually broadcasting. Out here on my back deck, please ignore the black line glob that's moving across the screen. That's just, once again, the mismatch between the shutter speed and the TV. And my camera phone doesn't have a thing to adjust or compensate for that. So my apologies. But as you can see, there is no static at all on this. The picture is actually really nice. Watching the short-lived sitcom from the late 90s, Greg the Bunny, aired on Fox. That's what's in rotation right about now. Like I said, this thing is about 50 feet, maybe 75 feet away from the antenna. So it's a really good picture. I really don't have an opportunity to take this out on the road with me. I thought I had an inverter in my car that could power this little set, because this doesn't run off of batteries, contrary to what you would think. It's just a plug and play. It's a little, I think it's a Magnavox, but it's just, AC powered, or actually, there's a transformer right there. It goes to DC. I guess I could fabricate a battery, box or something to kind of power it. Who knows? But anyway, I've got a little Casio handheld, and at a later time, I might, if I can find that one, take it out on the road and walk around with it and see what the broadcast range is. But for 50, 75 feet, this is actually really good. I mean, my neighbor might be able to pick up on it if he's got an old analog TV on both sides of me. Maybe actually my neighbor behind me. Hopefully it's not really violating a lot of FCC regulations. It probably is. If that's the case, I could always throttle it back, put like a attenuator on it or something like that on the antenna and kind of knock it down a bit. We'll see. Don't do this at home, kids. There's my disclaimer. Anyway, I apologize for this video taking so long to get made and put out. And as always, work is always the culprit. I love my job, but until YouTube starts paying what I'm making in the real world, yeah, it's just going to be sporadic like this. And I always appreciate you guys watching, sticking out to the end, the comments, the likes, the shares, or whatever you got thrown my way. Yeah, it's always good to see that. Even all the feedback, both positive and the negative ones. I'm not perfect. I'm open to constructive criticism. So feel free. Anyway, and the plane's going to pass over at just the right time because why not? It's my luck. That being said, thanks. You guys take it easy.